It's such a pleasure to meet you because you brought this all together
Well,
for so
and
many people.
quite a few people, and some of them are even real. We do have some fake profiles, but I think we have real people too.
It's been 2 years since you created the group.
Correct. The story is more interesting than starting a Facebook group, hoping for the best, and then people coming on. It started as a meetup group. In the UK, there was meetup.com. If you have a hobby, you go to meetup, find people in your area and get together. I was in a group called Tribe Sober. It's a membership-based group. I eventually joined their group. We would do Zooms. Janet Goron, the founder, I consider her a friend. I've never met her in real life. And she interviewed me for the podcast, but she would say things like, in your local area, perhaps you want to start your own community, your own group, or get active in a community so that you do have those people. And I had my laptop open and I was going to start a meetup full of excitement. I'd been sober 3 or 4 months. If we don't make changes, we tend to go back to the way things were. That struck me and I said, just do it. It doesn't matter if it works or not. At least you're taking action. I didn't want to go to AA. I opened my laptop, paid $70. My first meetup, I go to Starbucks, filled with anticipation. 2 ladies were confirmed. Starbucks closed for a renovation the night before. I'm like, seriously? Who does this happen to? I'm not going to be able to find this lady. And I did. I found her in the parking lot. It was Linda, who drove a Zamboni. We changed the location and grew to maybe 7 or 8 people over 6 months. And then there became a point where, because that was the spring, the weather turned cold. People didn't want to meet anymore. And it had ebbed and flowed, but we were down to 2 or 3 people. So I suggested, why don't we meet online? We did go for a walk a couple times. And why don't we meet online? I don't remember if I got a suggestion of where online. There's so many options today. Being the age that I am, I decided on Facebook. So then I put, and what was the name of my group? I think it was the ladies, sober coffee ladies. It was supposed to be women. All these men kept joining, even real men, not just bots. I kept kicking them out. And then I thought, I got to go with this. Some were nice guys. So I changed the name and it was 40 people for a year, 50 people. Last summer, 2024, I opened up the group and I have 150 requests to join. I'm like, what? Huh? I don't know what I'm doing as a group administrator. So I let them all in. All of a sudden, it was thousands and Cleavage City.
Oh,
Yeah. Basically a porn site for a month. I'm surprised I kept some true sober seekers. One lady said, in this group, I've seen enough cleavage for my lifetime. Everybody was doing their own rodeo and I didn't know what to do. So you can imagine the hours I spent cleaning up the group. I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to do this on my own. The one thing I do have now as a resource, and that's people. The lovely people of Living Sober. We have a new name, which I'll mention and why. I reached out for moderators. We have members in the group. One reminded me that Living Sober, the name of my group, is also one of their literature pieces. I'd forgotten that. It's a good book of stories. I started to think I need a new name, but I changed it so many times. Living Sober is where I got my memberships. I was loath to change it and then not like it. I prayed. It took some time. I asked my moderator, small chat group. One of my moderators suggested Sober and Free. I thought that's generic enough to work. For me, what I get from the group is learning to be balanced. And what I've gotten from this group of people, and even the angry ones, you're supposed to be angry when you've drank too much and you've got this poison coursing through your system, what it's doing to our inner gauges. We keep picking it up again because of the fading effect bias. We're going to be angry when we can't crack this code. So when people are angry and not balanced, indignant souls come on and are disappointed that everything's not perfect and peachy. I'm like, what group do you think you're in? You're in a group of people struggling. So they're going to send an SOS out in the way of their anger. I don't remove comments that are not nice because it defeats the purpose. Maybe some people's path is to develop tolerance. There's a little X at the top of every post. You don't have to see it. We're not using these tools enough.
Having looked at the posts and comments, I feel like I want to help. How do you deal with that? Because so many people are in a desperate situation. A lot of people are like, just be okay, you'll be okay. It's hanging
Right.
there.
I
It's just
got
like,
you got this.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, is that helping? What's your game plan?
I remind everybody I am just a fellow drinker like them that has found sobriety. When asked in my sobriety, I say find someone you trust and talk to them. It might not be your mother, it might not be your bestie, but there's always, that's God's grace. We always get you have someone, even if you're homeless. My last guest called it camping. She boyfriend was just camping. Love that perspective, doing life on their own terms. Even in that situation, there's always someone you can talk to. And that's, I think, that first step. And they can be that oracle that can hold that information until at which time you are ready to take action. So I don't really have problems with that because I don't get very emotionally involved. I'm not equipped to manage someone in this position. The first thing to do is to reach out to local professionals and go down the clinical route. I don't have any liability protection in this. Privately, people have been cruel, called me names, and are vicious. I don't even know if they're real. I think to my clinical sisters and brothers, nurses in civic positions, and I remain respectful and neutral.
Yeah. For us, it was an eye-opener to come into your group. People who are going through AA need that extra help. They are suffering from alcoholism. Whereas myself and Brandy as coaches, we are sharing from our own story. We haven't hit rock bottom, but deciding for various reasons, we don't want to take alcohol. We don't want to put that into our body anymore.
I think it's commendable that someone who isn't an addict can get dependent and cross lines with online activity, shopping, spending, hoarding, whatever. However, it's not necessarily the end line issue doesn't change one's body and mind the way a drug does. That's why it can be more damning, more complicated. But what I love about what you're doing is with a level head and heart, you can get that education. Even though I was a drunk, I did it the hard way because I dropped AA and I got an education. They've said in AA, you can't be too dumb, but you can be too smart. That was me. I would be at the meeting and I would read everything and I was going to crack the code of why I do this behavior. For the first 10 years, I accepted that I didn't need to know why. Just do the steps, make coffee, chop wood, drink water. When done, chop more wood, drink water, help someone. That's the way in AA, especially the old timers. Service work, step 1 to 12. If you don't know what step you're on, you're not in recovery. I was like, fuck that. I am the middle child. My mom said, it's time to go. We're supposed to leave at 7. I'd be like, no, it's 6:59. That's the way I am. Now I'm a non-drinker for life. AA won't say that. They feel the drink is just around the next corner. You have to be aware of it. And that subconscious tripping point, the mistake is that subconsciously somewhere they still think that there is even a little bit redeeming about alcohol. And the difference is when you get that education, you actually can learn and then therefore take it to the subconscious level. There is not one good thing about alcohol. Why struggle if there's nothing good about it?
Suzanna, that's interesting you say that about the for life, because the podcast guest that I had yesterday, or Friday rather, spoke exactly to that. He did a couple years in AA, took away the essence of it. It supported him when he needed it most. But he said he can't align with, I am not an addict forever. I am not an alcoholic forever. Now, through my actions, I am alcohol free. I used to be an alcoholic. He said, I understand the premise of why they state that it is forever so that you don't slip. I want to give myself more power, no matter how much that program serves people. I don't have to align with that belief system. I deeply believe that nobody, regardless of the good they do, can tell me to feel that way about it. That's interesting that 2 people in 48 hours expressed that sentiment.
And the old timers, I understand why it worked for them. Dr. Silkworth, who worked with addicts in the 30s, alcoholics, and he finally cracked the code, he thought, and that was that it's an allergy. Okay, so it's an allergy. It's superficial because if you'll notice in your life, people that can seem to drink with impunity, and other people that they have one drink and they break out in handcuffs. There is this line, imaginary or otherwise, then it aligned with an allergy. Okay, this makes sense. That was taken to the next level, which was an allergy. Then, therefore, that category of people that have this allergy, they're diseased and they just can't drink. We can drink, but they can't. You go get sober and we will have fun and drink. That's where this delineation began. Fast forward 60 years, we know more. The upgrade is there's no allergy. There's ethanol in all alcohol, from champagne to beer to spirit. It doesn't matter. And that's why they have to serve it cold. Otherwise, it has a horrible taste with strong notes of other flavors, mostly sugar, because of this horrible taste of ethanol. Even your wine has about 3% ethanol. Spirits have 3%. Your wine has 1%. Like, there's barely any in there. You couldn't drink straight ethanol. If you didn't keep it down, it would kill you, but you would probably just immediately upchuck. So if it all has ethanol and it's a poison to 100% of people, then how can it be an allergy? For instance, arsenic. It's allergic. It's not an allergy because it's poisonous for everyone. You would never say arsenic is an allergy. If you have no allergy, you have no disease. Without the disease, a lot of things have to be let go. People's take it or leave it time is different. Mine was short, maybe a few months, weeks, a day. I don't know when it ended, but I could take it or leave it. Like your Aunt Martha, who has one finger of scotch every night until she's 105. Her take it or leave it stage is longer. So let's point to the poison, not the person. It's not saying we're completely innocent. We're fallible. We have all those mistakes, maybe suicidal sometimes. So we take the poison because secretly we want to die. All of that stuff's true. What I do disagree with is that there's category of people that we call alcoholics, and that they tried to convince my mom, who married an alcoholic, tried to convince me from this book she read that we were an alcoholic before we even drank alcohol. Predisposition? How can you be an alcoholic if you've never ingested alcohol? Crazy. Anyway, this is what's fueling the movement. One word: education. I started with alcohol. I started with Alan Carr's The Easy Way to Quit Drinking in 2011. 2012, I was on to alcohol. I drank and didn't read. Then I came back with the reading, because there is the big book, but that's not the only book out there. Nothing Good Can Come From This by Christy Coulter. My favorite is We Are the Luckiest by Laura McCowan. These are in my Facebook group. Guides, my 4 favorite quitlets are there. Then it goes on to The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, Catherine Gray. Beautiful book, a UK woman. It's just absolutely funny, hilarious. Whitaker's Quit Like a Woman, quite political, refutes the alcoholic principle. The 2 basic textbooks that you can just have flipped open and tabbed all over the place and keep referring back to, which is William Porter's Alcohol Explained, and the great Annie Grace, who wrote This Naked Mind. And she has a whole school and a course that she's now expanded her books to. And I'm on the waiting list to get certified in her principled way of thinking. And it's quite revolutionary. And this is going to take the world into this next phase of sobriety.
And I think that's happening now, that the phase of sobriety. Many people are drinking on autopilot and are hurting. So there's lots of factors to why people are drinking. But many people for a long time also, I feel, out of alignment with drinking. It's okay, something feels off anyway. It's something that I don't want to do. But because of society, the way we live in society, it's so normalized that actually everybody just does it anyway.
It's biological, because alcohol makes us tired, because we don't get the sleep that it's proven, we don't get the sleep that we require when we've had alcohol. You sleep about 5 hours and then wake up, but none of it was as deep as your body needs. Over a few days, you do run a deficit. So when we come home after a stressful day, we all have stress, no matter what we're doing. If you're alive and productive, you have stress. You might exercise some, but probably won't if you're tired from the night before. You end up in this deficit of reaching for what's easy. You hear something, feel something, you get inner messaging that I've got to change my life. It bubbles up, ready to be answered, and you break the habit. And the first 10 or 14 days, you will have physical withdrawal with alcohol. It's dangerous. If you are up to a certain amount, you have to quit with doctor supervision. You can't just go off alcohol if you've been drinking a certain amount, which is disclosed with each body, depending on your weight, there is an amount. Be careful when you're quitting. I was able to quit cold turkey without too many ramifications, except normal withdrawal being maybe you don't have a good night's sleep the first few nights. And of course, you've got the craving. After 10 to 14 days, a lot of the physical withdrawal is gone. The conditioned response remains. The mental neural pathway, we tie our shoes without thinking. You've got the same ones along the way. When you watch the sunset, go to the party, or have that conversation on the phone where you have a conditioned response of pouring that glass, and you've had a 10-day break. So really, what harm could it do? It's going to be different. Unfortunately, the amount you need picks up right where it left off. When you take a break from alcohol, if you have an addiction, your addiction's doing push-ups on the sidelines waiting for you to pick it up again. And it's even stronger the next time. It sounds like such a sad story, but it also still does have that anesthetic quality that it numbs our pain. It does relax us in the moment until the 20 minutes of that drink wears off, and then you move into withdrawal. 20 minutes is approximately when you move into withdrawal. Ipso facto, you want another drink. That's actually a withdrawal symptom. You have that drink, and after about 20 minutes, you go lower than you were before you had the drink. So you take another one to level off, then go even lower. And that's why you take that fifth drink. It's the poison engineered that way. It's not the person. They're not weak. I am not weak. Do I sound weak?
Definitely not. Yeah, I do feel there is a change coming in society now, and it's lovely that somebody like you is leading the way. You're trailblazing for many of us to follow.
But I am a bit of an activist. When I joined Tribe Sober, and I'd get on the cafe Zooms here in Canada, the only one I could do was one day a week, and it was 4:30 in the afternoon there, 3 in the morning. I was on the ones on Saturday pretty consistently. I'd get on with the group, and they were going into their lives. Being in this tribe helps, talking with other people and celebrating each other's sobriety day by day. At the time, I had less than a year. I spent the first 2 years of this sobriety, because I've been sober many times before using other tools. We would celebrate, but I always loved when we started getting on about big alcohol, manufacturing, propaganda, and targeting the moms. Janet, my friend, said to me, I always felt harsh. She said, Suzanna, you've got an activist's heart. She made me feel good about recognizing alcohol lied to me and not feeling bad because so many love it. Categorize that in my brain and say, I don't care. It's all a lie. I don't have to qualify. It's unhealthy. It will kill you. Look what it's done to society. I have so many stories, as do you, without negative reinforcement by being angry. That's not going to do anything. I want to be in a place of optimism. That's why my group is called Sober and Free and not called Addiction Counseling, which is pointing to the problem. On the other hand, we have to have full awareness that we are targeted with marketing. If you watch a movie or a TV show, in the first 4 to 5 minutes, the star will be drinking something. You know?
Yeah. And that's what Christine and I were talking about in the podcast, that even as you're growing up, it's placed in there. And so many of the programs, that's supporting what the narrative they want for everybody. So movies and sitcoms, everyone's got a glass of wine. You don't realize life doesn't have to have a glass of wine in hand.
I refute even watching those shows. Like when I'm watching shows, which is only on the weekend, during the week, I don't watch TV. I do other waste of time things like scrolling. But the big shows, if I find myself watching them, like last night, I was watching something because it's the weekend. I'm allowed. It was Michelle Docker. I love her. She was in Downton Abbey, and The Anatomy of a Scandal is about 10 years old. I'm watching it, and it is out of the UK. Champagne here, wine in the next one, then lunch and drinking. And it is the UK, right? Yeah. So they drink even more. These people are wealthy, successful, and I call bullshit. Like Sex in the City. I used to watch it all the time when I was more impressionable. I'd like to think I'm less impressionable, although it gets in our subconscious. When I was living in New York City in my own apartment, I was sober, going to AA. I had to leave because of September 2001. I was a few blocks away. My AA meeting was at the same area as the Towers. I was that subway stop, but I didn't go that Tuesday. It was Tuesday mornings at 7:30 a.m. When I was living in that apartment, I used to watch DVDs on my laptop and watch Sex in the City. They drank with impunity. And once in a while, Carrie would have a hangover, but they were always drinking and going home with people, sleeping with people. It's not true. None of it's true.
In England, weekends look like that.
Feeling great the next day, all dressed up.
Yeah.
Not true.
That was one of the first things I realized in London. I always experienced guilt, anxiety, and depression the day after. Everybody shut that down. They're like, no, whatever. And we would just have another drink. In London, it's very supported. A handful of people I knew didn't drink. And that's in the industry. We are trainers and yoga teachers. I felt a lot of emotional shame, regret, and disappointment. My friends were like, get over it.
You're probably putting on weight when it turns the alcohol into acetaldehyde, which is a chemical that actually you would never be able to get past Canada Health or FDA. The actual chemical that your body turns alcohol into is so poisonous, it would never pass. Anyway, having said that, so the sugar is your body is going to use the sugar from alcohol right away. It can't store it. If you eat a chocolate bar and can't use it, it stores as fat. The sugar from alcohol, if you dive into the science more, then you see why, but it has to use it right away. Anything you eat while you're imbibing, some calories can't be used because it must process the alcohol first. So in other words, you're going to put on weight, but not just because of the empty calories. It changes your whole digestive system. Imagine the havoc on organs, not just the liver. What's the pancreas doing in the meantime with its insulin? It's very complicated.
Well, if you think about how they purport it as a liver issue, you can't have a liver issue and not have a heart issue, a spleen issue, a digestive issue. There's no separating them all. Right. One might show more symptoms, but there's stuff sneaking up in every physiological process in your body.
The liver is your filter. So if your filter's dirty, then it's delivering, which is its end-line job, substances to your organs that's all dirty. If your filter's dirty, even though the liver, God bless the liver. I used to pray over my liver and thank it. Not when I was drinking, when I was reading Anthony William, the medical medium. He has his book, Liver Rescue. I was all about the liver for a couple of years. Did you know if you drank every Thursday night, your liver would catch on to this? It starts preparing and producing enzymes on Wednesday. You think you're smart? You're not as smart as your liver. Respect your liver and stop drinking alcohol. Do you guys know the Huberman podcast?
Oh, I love him.
Oh, he's an ophthalmologist and a professor at Stanford, and just seems like when you look at him, he's just regular guy. And he, although he's highly intelligent, and very well spoken, there's something about him that's very down to earth. And I think that's why everybody relates to him so much, although he does get off onto the science sometime.
But he loves that. He does. There's always a disclaimer. He's always, okay, if you don't want the deep stuff, he understands the mechanisms to a deep level.
He studies daily. People like that who can speak like that he's always in a book, always studying. The brain will let go.
And research.
Yeah. And he said he has a 2-hour podcast about alcohol changing lives, because basically he didn't sugarcoat it. He said, I'd love to tell you that there's some good news. And someone like that, a scientist so followed, coming out with this alcohol report for 2 hours. I found it fascinating. People maybe, yeah.
Even with that, he doesn't sugarcoat it. That one dropped 2 years ago. I'd already stopped drinking when I listened to it. So I was like, okay, I can absorb all of it. It's great. And I said to one of my best friends, I said, oh my gosh, because she's toying with the idea. And she said, don't send it to me yet. She said, I know the hard truths are coming. And she still hasn't listened to it. She's coming around. She's had a lot of trauma. He did one on marijuana as well. He brought forward the same kind of mentality as he did with the alcohol one. And that because marijuana in many countries now is legal, that there's that thought, it's okay, alcohol is legal too. So ask yourself, do not underestimate the physiological impact.
The money, who's making money off this? Many feel safe because the government condones it, but the government is in cahoots with big alcohol. The amount of money that the government makes from your alcohol consumption, that's got to draw a red flag. Governments used to be different, especially civil governments in a democratic society.
I had on our podcast the other day, she did research on an alcohol deficit from a fiscal. It was $6.3 million in taxes. The deficit over the long term is billions. I think she said $13 billion from healthcare costs, drinking and driving deaths, domestic abuse cost. And we're at a $13 billion deficit from alcohol. The government's taking that money for the short term. It's a deficit.
Maybe they're in the plus for an hour until you have your fourth drink, and then some shit's going to happen.
And they're having the drinks while talking about this.
They're having on the rooftop bar. Yeah, for sure. There was a professor named David Nutt, N-U-T-T, out of the UK, and he was the Minister of Health for many years. I've heard him being interviewed, and he wrote a book called Drink, Enjoy, and Imbibing from Time to Time. As a Minister of Health, after all his research, and he did a deep dive, that was his job, he called it a drug for the first time. 2009 was the first time it was officially called a drug by a high-level minister. A PhD, a pharma medical professional. His main area of study is the neurological effect of drugs and alcohol. He calls it a drug, and in rates of damages to society, to the individual and as a whole, the drug alcohol rated the highest by a lot. If the count out of 100, alcohol would be 70. The next one below that was cocaine, and it was 51. And then below that was crack cocaine and meth. I don't know where marijuana was. And they fired him. The English government fired Dr. Nutt for having called it a drug because it's alcohol and it's recreational.
Heartbreaking.
The book is on my list. People can get an education and want to quit. For your friend, it's an enjoyable read because Alan Carr, The Easy Way to Stop Drinking, and Craig Beck's Alcohol, they all say drink while you're reading this. Annie Grace is a proponent of saying that. Drink while you're reading this. I didn't quit because it was wrong to drink. I didn't quit because I thought it would be better for my health. No freaking way. It was giving me enough stimulus, enough lies that I didn't quit. I quit because it stopped working. As my tolerance built, once you get past 50, alcohol behaves differently, then I could finally quit. Compassion and empathy for anyone still drinking. I get it. You don't want to quit from willpower. You just go back to it, and then you're repeating the hard stuff over and over again. Get yourself an education, continue to drink if you need to, and read, listen, rinse, repeat. What I recommend. A podcast like this is a great example.
The growth mindset, you can apply that to anything. Scarlett and I were speaking about building the community. You see it on your page as well, in your community, that there's going to be lapses. People are going to trip up, but that not the end. If you screw up once, it's not the end until you put the pen down. Isn't it crazy? There can even be a question of morality with something, a toxin in our body. Even with the brain after drinks, the brains aren't connecting synapses. It's not a morality piece. If you
lose agency at a certain point. Yeah. We know this, yet it is still pointed to the person with the DWI. They should have no capability to drive after 2 or 3. I can't absolve people of all the guilt because God knows the haters, you'll come out and say, what do you mean? Of course, it's the person's decision to get in
the trauma behind the decision to start or not feel like you might not have the resources or compassion. Nobody's got issues with addiction, and you're going to go back and find that there's no trauma before that. That's just like an impossibility. It doesn't have to be big T trauma.
Working 40 hours a week is not how we were designed. You do that enough, and you have small children, and you're trying to make ends meet, and we have so many taxes and different insurances that we pay for. By the time you've paid your bills, you've got nothing left to bring home. Life is hard in a different way than it used to be. I don't have to kill the animal. I don't have to get up at dawn and bake the bread. We've got so much stress that it creates the fight or flight response, and we're going to grab the drink. Marketing has shoveled it into our subconscious. You need to keep sharing sobriety to keep it going. One fighting chance that you will have, if you have a fundamental belief change to alcohol, your relationship to it will change. You need that belief change to make it easier. Otherwise, it's just going to be too hard and you're going to relapse. If that change hasn't occurred, if you still think there's something good about it, the alcohol's good, the high's good, and it's just me, you're never going to maintain sobriety, even with a group. But if you're sick 1 week and can't go to group, or you're just going to drink because you got a cold, Brandy, you were going to say something.
No, that's okay. I think about the programming. I haven't been vocal about sobriety because I did quit. Scarlett mentioned this earlier. Both of us didn't have a rock bottom. Both of our stories are different because the spectrum through which every single person relates to alcohol is unique. I would never have identified as an alcoholic. My relationship with it was problematic. I had so much fear about losing deep friendships and family relationships because it's so propped up societally. It's this endemic issue. I stifled my voice for 3 years. I didn't start talking about it until 6 months ago. I feel good not drinking alcohol. Even in my family, with my sisters, brother, my parents don't drink much anymore. I felt like I got pulled along. It was my own thing, but I was getting pulled in. I was contemplating, how many drinks do I have? Do I have to drive home and have one drink? Do I stay at the cabin and drink whatever I want, or do I not drink anything? Like I was in a constant state of freaking like, just makes me want to cry. But I stayed. Why? Because I fit in.
I want to swim upstream. It's so hard. If I'm a little salmon swimming upstream,
it's the going with the flow. We're going with the flow when we're drinking alcohol.
We're cool. I'm cool.
Because we fit in with everybody. I don't want to fit in anymore.
People are finding their voice with social media in the 50s. If you think about the news on the telly, last 5 minutes, it's short, like 10 minutes. That's all people will want to watch. They'll never want to watch 24 hours of news. They were wrong. But you'd have to be some sanctioned, almost governmental force. They pick the anchor person, they write the news. It's all controlled. Now, government's freaking out, especially the dictatorial type, because we all have a voice. Millions of voices are saying, wait a minute, I don't think like that. I have my own voice. I think the sky is this color. Truth matters. The truth will set you free. Truth is like water finding its own level. We love the truth. I like that you can say whatever you want. Let's hope that never goes away. If you follow the money, even though they're losing money because of the alcohol in the health system in the long run, we don't have long-term vision in our leaders. And that's the leaders that we need, is the ones with the long-term, that they might not get the glory, but their vision and their action and their movements get the glory. And it does start to be a little bit of a battle between good and evil. Good has a characteristic and bad has a certain characteristic, if you want to use superficial labels. But a good characteristic is not about personal glory. It's all about, let's just find something that has the highest amount of love, the highest amount of compassion. And that's going to be the thing that's a legacy worth leaving. It doesn't matter about personal glory. You see God through me. You don't see Suzanna God. That's why that image is powerful. But in your works is the good. With this decision to speak up about alcohol and stop apologizing, not only for not drinking, but for calling others out and being unpopular on our little soapbox, and maybe on a middle-sized box and the stage, saying there is nothing redeeming about alcohol. Let's stop the lying, pull the Band-Aid off. I have another tidbit, which is huge. Your inner pharmacy, what your hormones deliver, way better drugs.
Myokines.
It's sustainable. If I feel good tonight, I'm going to feel good tomorrow morning, and I sleep good and wake up and still feel good. And I have times where I feel terrible, reliving feelings from something that happened. All of that's true. I say things at work. My friend says, "Did you say this about me?" And I go, "Yep. Sorry, probably should have said that. I'm just a person, and I have loose morals sometimes. I got to get random." The one thing consistent is I am a little bit more, I won't say in control, because we all struggle with that. It's a dance with life on life's terms. Take a step with control and let life do its thing. It's that dance. that brings this feeling of well-being, balance. One thing about sobriety, and I'm only going on 3 years this summer, is that I have hope like I've never had before. In drinking, we knew deep down this feeling's going to end. So I better have another drink. You're panicked. I need another drink. It was hardwired. And you find yourself, oh shit. Now I'm into the bad part of drinking. You still keep sipping. If you were me, you need to go to bed. Sometimes I could be in the middle of a conversation in the kitchen and I would turn away and go to bed, pass out. I love the sustainability of my emotions now and my ability to regulate my emotions because I was never able to develop that.
Is this your longest duration, coming up on 3 years?
Yeah, except for when I was a baby until I was 14.
Your mama said you were already an alcoholic when you were born.
I wasn't even sober then. I was a 6-month-old drunk. I don't know. And my drinking was a lot of the latter year. There's another fallacy I wanted to mention that I heard Dax Shepard, the wonderful sober Dax Shepard, say today on a podcast. He said, people think there's a fallacy with drinking. We hit a rock bottom and quit. And that's not true. Often we'll hit a rock bottom, but that's not the day we quit. Sometimes quitting comes more quietly. We quit on a day where we didn't have anything dramatic occur and we've just had enough. So with your question, with the drinking, I think that my longest stint in sobriety this time is 2.5 years, 3 years this summer. I had 3 years in AA before, 2 months short. Technically, I'm coming up to the longest I ever had before, which is exciting. I did have a slip at the 1 year mark. I can't remember other times, usually 4 months here, 6 months a year. I started trying to quit for 19 years. Two things. First of all, they did a study in the UK of 6,500 people. And with all the cases that they studied from the time we wanted to quit to the time we succeed, the median was 11 years. Another study stated that for our mood systems to calm down and regulate, you need a month for every year you drank. I drank for 36 years. In 36 months of being stopped, that calming will go to a new level. My brain is waking up more every month. I'm more receptive. I'm also getting older. My perceptions are dulling, aren't they? Science says at 56 years old.
But that doesn't have to be true. There's a lot of study with longevity and health span that there's the assumption that there's decline in cognitive function and executive function, all of those things over time. But that's not taking into account if you look at habits over months. And I was saying this actually, Scarlett, I think I was mentioning this before, like the longer I get into it, the clearer the slate gets. And you add those practices on top, aging in a chronological manner, rather, that is a decline. No, that could be actually your greatest era of cognitive and executive function and your ability to a sustainable energy system, like you said. Your body's stepping into more clean living
because you don't have this stopping of good practices that happens when a night out drinking. Then you stop all the good practices and the foundation is threatened. If you have a practice of meditation, exercise, breath work, and then go drinking, it's going to topple that. I have good intentions, but you don't have the energy because of the fatigue. So you're always starting over. There's a point where you stop letting go of great practices. Vanity can help bring you back, but it's not going to last through your 60s and 70s. Vanity is not a tool anymore. No. I used to think vanity, superficial, was a motivator.
Society props up the image thing. You got to consume, you got to buy these things to feel good. Drink the thing, then you feel shitty. Buy this cream, that outfit. It's all external.
An illusion. Alcohol makes you fatter, but you must be thin. It's delicate. The word fat, nobody likes that. Nobody likes the word even.
No, but we're all women of that generation still, that thin is in was our thing. Like when I started training in the 90s, only a couple of us girls were lifting heavy. Everybody else had their tights on with their thong and slouchy socks on the treadmill, cross trainer, stair climber, and we're in there beefing up. We've been sold that lie.
Come from the dance world. Balanchine, one of the most famous choreographers, used to tap on his dancers' ribs and say, all you need is a bit of red wine. if the
Wow.
sound word hollow enough. That lie has been disbanded.
Heavy weights, do breath work, and stop drinking.
I agree. We got to shout that from the mountain. What do
Yeah.
you have to say, Scarlett? You look very fit.
Living in the mountains, drinking good water, a good diet, and less stress.
Yeah. No,
And then
it's
the
true.
breath work for many people, we were talking about this, myself and Brandy, when you are stopping the alcohol, then you're stopping the dopamine hit. You need to replace that. We love dopamine.
Your body stopped producing dopamine when you brought alcohol in your gut, and your brain went, oh, she's getting it somewhere else. When you stop alcohol, it takes 4 or 5 days. Depressed in the beginning, your body will bring the levels back up and overproduce. That's the pink cloud you've heard of. The more often you do the stopping and starting, that'll regulate. Proven that you will.
Okay, we are dopamine lovers anyway because we do the breath work. There's a big dopamine addiction in our society, especially in the health and yoga world. We're doing all these practices that are always like pushing ourselves in certain ways and giving us that dopamine hit.
If you do a downward dog, take it into your cobra, finish and do your breathing, you feel amazing.
Yeah.
If you want to lift your spirits, do
Exactly.
5 minutes of exercise. I hired somebody when I first got sober. That's another thing I recommend is hire somebody. There's so many coaches out there. I'm a sober coach. I have a few clients. We're building together and I'm taking more certifications. When I first got sober, I had a coach, Lynette. You got a free session with Tribe Sober. I hired her for more. I was going through a hard time with a reunion with my sisters. Probably not a good idea. We had a big argument, inevitable. After the argument, I went to the gym and I was stretching. I stretch every day, even if I don't get the workout in. And my coach, who is also a practicer of yoga, said, it's great that this is the first place you went when the emotions are, because they'll dissipate. They have and need somewhere to go. We're energetic beings and you can't hold it all in. You will drink eventually. You're right about dopamine. You get it naturally, but also through action.
Redesigning your life because society is floating along in alcohol and cigarettes, or even just diet. It's all a big lie. There's so much lying in the food industry. We need to redesign our lives. We're on autopilot, fed by protocols destroying our lives.
And we've met people beyond the point of no return where they speak a language of not winning. They are cliche after cliche. I have someone I work with that I'm thinking of, and I don't know if there's any way to change someone they seem to have died years ago, just going along overweight. She's overweight, doesn't look healthy. Her skin's terrible. And she's the same miserable day, Groundhog Day. You could say it's her choice. Feel she's a victim.
People who drank a lot and are working to change are lucky ones in some ways, because I haven't met many people who are declaring themselves as sober who haven't had heavy drinking. The rest drinking on the weekends will stay with them unless they get infiltrated by the education that you're bringing forward, or
until they drink too much. Janet had a funny story where she says, we all get allotted a certain amount of drinks. I just drank all mine already.
It's that I'm done moment. I had it with cigarettes. One day I just said, I'm done. I didn't have another cigarette since.
I just hope death doesn't happen with alcohol before that point. That's the risk. Take your heart into things, but bring your brain. If we're all heart centered, we could end our lives prematurely. If that's okay with you, that's fine, but not for the people that love you and the people around you. Alcohol kills. We lost a friend last August. He died of alcohol. The wife and grown boys don't see it that way. I saw it happening for 10 years. He was unemployed from an injury and he would just drink. Yeah. I would visit and I was shocked that I wasn't into sobriety. I was sometimes drinking with them, but not like that. He was a wonderful, charming guy. He used to say, hey, Suzanna, if I'd have 5 beers before I talk to people, I don't even shake. He'd say, stay cool like me. He had so many expressions. I won't say his name, but he was wonderful at the memorial.
With a drink.
He killed himself. He finally had it. His wife told him to leave after years of her
being complicit.
Not recognizing the alcohol. She was pointing to the person, not the poison. You can't blame it on them. And they don't have a disease. It's the poison. It's like a snake. It's gotten into them and it's not them anymore. But one thing that is true is it is the poison that's the problem. It has to get out of the person. Then we can start to deal with them. But until you get that fundamental belief changed, that they can derive any kind of solace, joy, find refuge in their drug of choice, and nothing's going to change. People have to want it. Someone I was talking to the other day kept saying they have to want it. Really? They're not going to want it if their brain is poisoned. They don't understand the logic of that. There is a point beyond no return. If you take that next drink, we don't know which drink is going to be the one that you do get beyond that point of no return. My friend killed himself. So it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that on my group, bring it back to the Facebook group. You see raw terror in those people. And I tend to gloss over it. I'll accept this post. This one's declined. And I'm just looking at content. And did he answer the group questions and agree to the group rules? I'm going through it like that. I have conversations with God going, okay, what's going on with me? I see a post that says, oh my God, this is the end. I want to kill myself. And I'm like, decline. When you have 125,000 people, you're like, maybe it's a robot. Because Facebook, Meta, they've figured out what we're about.
So
that's a whole podcast called Meta. I don't know what's going on if they're inventing these suicide ideation profiles because they can aid society. I don't know what the end line purpose is. My brain is not big enough to figure out
direction.
Brandy messed up plans. Simplistic movies about good and evil. A big evil guy at the top of the mountain with the bats. He's got a reason. It's usually the evil guy wants to rule. That is a reason. It's not this purposeless, aimless thing that is the evil in the world. There is a purpose. Defy God, defy good, whatever you want to call it. So with this thing with Meta, my brain's not big enough because I can't see past my own little life. You see that with your own lives, even in beautiful meditations where you bring your consciousness up to the level of seeing the universe. I do a meditation every morning, but really we see nothing. No. We see our own little mouse hole with our own little track. I don't know what meta is. The word means very big. It makes me feel small and stupid. Back to the group, I see troubled souls, brilliant ones. There was a man, what's his last name? Because it's easy to remember because it's original. It's called Titsworth. Mr. Titsworth, I don't mean to laugh about your name. He's the lead singer of a rock band, Images of Eden. The lead singer is part of my group, and he's actually going to come on my podcast. So there is some incredible people. And you, Scarlett, you joined, and Brandy, I don't know if you've joined. It's an honor to do the administration for them. It's taken off beyond me, goofy me. I'm okay with that.
For me, you've inspired me a lot, and how much you know about alcohol. I admire your passion and voice. It's a pleasure and honor to be sitting here with you. I don't want you to go. I want to talk to you every day.
We can do this again. Subtopic it. Like we can go into the topics of social media and spend the week or two beforehand looking at our own usage, seeing how maybe we're different, because that's a topic I've wanted to study more, but there's not a lot of data yet for my own usage. Desire to pick up my phone every 20 minutes, hour, 5 minutes, depending on the day. I'm like, okay, what is that? That's starting to be a little bit like alcohol. It teaches us.
I need to talk to you quickly. You're just like, okay, alcohol is poison. I used to look after these old ladies, and like many of the old ladies who live into 90 years and they had ripe old age, very happy, had their marbles and
effervescent.
Beautiful old worldly ladies talk about the war. They would have their glass of wine or sherry every evening. It was a daily ritual, a lifelong ritual.
You know, there's two things. First, they don't get the same dopamine rush as your local native person who hadn't had it in their society for the last 300 years. Their dopamine hit is like times 8. How are they not going to become addicted to that? We love feeling great. I would take that dopamine hit right now. It's not a moral decision, just that I know about the fallout. That's education. She doesn't get the same hit because maybe in their background, 3,000 years, Slavic people have been drinking vodka. I'm Polish. When I first started drinking, I had a take it or leave it phase, like I called it, that perhaps with certain spirits, again, this is just theory, that it didn't really give me the same hit because my culture, because we inherit things over time, Darwinism, we drank for so long that it's tolerated. When I was pregnant, I stayed clean. I had half a glass at the end saying, come out of me already. I'm going to drink wine to get you out of my body. The water broke that night. So my baby didn't want the wine. I think I had a drag of a cigarette. I didn't drink. I was working with a lot of women at a gym. They were working out in a circle. It's a place called Curves. And they would all share with
there.
Great for chit chat. These ladies had babies. I was having my first. So it was wonderful education. One lady used to be a drug addict who was successfully or unsuccessfully, maybe she still drank. I have no idea, but she was a drug addict at one point and she had a baby and the baby was born. She was using during her pregnancy. The body has abilities beyond our understanding. When we drink, it's not all bad. Your body's, whoa, I recognize this. Let's grab that and do this. Even with the production of acetaldehyde, your organs working together can completely eliminate it and produce healthy life, healthy lifestyle, and all that. But it's in spite of the alcohol consumption. Why would you challenge your organs? Also, there is undisputed fact that alcohol causes 7 different types of cancer, and it's a link that can't be broken no matter what. And they've reduced the amount of units that are recommended by governments all over the world because of that study. It's irrefutable. Trust your inner pharmacy. You will be high again, but it's going to be natural because of conversations like this. I'm not talking about our content. I'm just talking about being able to have a good time in traditional sense, being with other people, having healthy discourse, lovely conversations. That gives you an emotional stimulus. And you think it's coming from alcohol at a party, and alcohol gets all the credit. But what about the good time you're having? It gets no credit. It's just the alcohol. It's all lies.
I think there is a lot of hope for the future, especially because of social media, a big wave of spirituality and health coming through social media. Lots of people are being exposed to things that maybe they wouldn't have done in their normal everyday life if it hadn't been for social media. So I feel like for the younger generation, a lot of them are like having healthier choices. And you meet more young people nowadays that are not drinking. It's not so normal to them as it was to us.
The alcohol dollar can really help bridge the gap in tough times. The alcohol dollar is a plus. When we have new sobriety, you'll find that you have a superpower because all of a sudden you'll have more energy to get this and that done. Our alcohol dollar will also feel like we've gotten wealthier, as we don't need to pay the $200, $300, $400 a week on alcohol in restaurants and at home. Now, also one more thing, the non-alcoholic drink these alcohol companies are pushing, do not buy them. You don't spend $27 on a sugary drink trying to maybe pretend to taste like wine. They're just giving you this diluted form of the lie.
Yes.
I understand. Just put your Gatorade into a wine glass, but let's not let them get away with it. Heineken's charging the same price for 6 non-alcoholic beers. The same price. Are you kidding me? Work went into that. I don't really care.
It actually, I think it's more work. So they de-alcoholize it. And so this is the thing when people, my brother-in-law would be like, I buy those. At the beginning, I drank them more often. I never drank beer until I stopped drinking alcohol. We would go to the lake and put a couple alcohol-free beer if we're going to be out on the boat for the day.
Yep.
My brother-in-law would take them out. He's like, they can't be in the cooler. No, why are these in here? Because they don't get as much value, but they have more value than the one with alcohol because they're not killing you and they're not giving you cancer. And I would happily pay for something that's not going to cause problems.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but they're also tricking people. Non-alcoholic drinks cost the same. It's like you're missing out. You can have this and pretend people around you. Let's talk levels. At the profound level, you have to say alcohol is poison. You are not bad. Big alcohol is lying to you. It's governmentally funded, propagated. Hollywood is paid. Even each actor at a mid-level, alcohol-free is great. Some alcoholics feel they trigger them. So if we remove them from the equation, perhaps
Yeah.
it can help somebody. And I said in a Facebook, if it helps you, do it. Stay sober.
See, and I haven't said anything until 6 months ago. I'm coming up on 4. We must be around the same date. I'm at 3 years and 3/4.
You're 1 year more than me because I will be 3 years, August 2025.
My perception is a little different. This is what Scarlett and I talk about all the time. I didn't have an issue with it, but it was problematic. The day I decided to quit, this is what comes back to, what's his name?
Andrew Huberman.
Forget his name. It doesn't have to be a rock bottom. For me, I had my birth and I couldn't remember his wife's name. Kristen Bell. I had been drinking on my birthday. We went kayaking. Jasmine was with us. I had a couple shots of tequila throughout the day. I did not get drunk. I had a margarita at dinner with my daughter and parents. It wasn't Bender. But I woke up the next day feeling, oh my gosh, I just felt beside myself. I'm like, nope, no more. I made that decision. I can say there has not been a day that I wanted to drink since my relationship with alcohol-free beer is different. If somebody's going to stop drinking and take on alcohol-free beer and then pull back, that's less problematic than if they're drinking.
So it depends on their conditioned response. If the groove is deep for the neurological pathway, then maybe it will be a trigger and you can't have it. Everybody needs to know their own triggers. If you've been drinking for 50 years, you don't even know where your grooves are. So you probably need to stay away from it. If every time you drink, you break out into handcuffs, you probably can't have alcohol-free Heineken.
This is also me admitting my inability to see it that way. And this is probably why I didn't talk about it for so long. I took those first 3 years of sobriety and didn't say much. Didn't want my family to think the message is at them. I'm like, no, you're not part of this. This is my journey. The fact that you're still drinking, if that triggers you, that's your problem. I stifled my voice because I felt like a fraud. Never been to jail.
It was harder for you to quit drinking than your hardcore bridge dwelling alcoholic. Your form of drinking was applauded. People want you to keep drinking. You were pleasant, social.
I cried a bit too much.
We can get emotionally high and tired. You were supported in your drinking more than that other guy.
When not supported.
Society saying to him, oh, you got to quit. Now you're a problem to us. But you, Brandy, were not a problem. Quitting is a problem. The drunk quitting is not a problem.
Do you want to hear something crazy? Talking about quitting being a problem, I was speaking to a friend and we're worried about another friend. I expressed my worry that they're forgetting everything, even when not drinking, repeating things, even when not drinking. We came to the conclusion and I said, I don't think it can be me to say anything because I'm not drinking. My friend agreed. She's, yes, it can't be you. It almost comes across as I'm telling someone what to do when really I'm just sharing what I feel deeply about and care about this person and love them dearly. That now my voice doesn't matter because I'm not drinking.
Wait a minute, Brandy, if someone who's drinking tells them, then they're hypocritical. So no one can tell them. Using words like judgment is inaccurate because we're allowed to discern. So they've weaponized that to keep society drinking. It comes back to what the alcoholic says, which is the person does have to want to quit. Did you ever watch Star Trek?
Yeah, sure.
What Star Trek did, Gene Roddenberry was brilliant. He would take you to another planet. They could introduce other people, and whether they were humanoids or alien or whatever, that would think differently. There was one planet I'll never
to introduce ideas. So
people could help open up your mind to us here on Earth. I'll never forget, they used to jog everywhere. They didn't walk. And they were beautiful half-dressed men and women. And they were all blonde, looked like ABBA. And they would wear these tennis outfits. And Kirk arrives. And this is like my memory. If I watched the episode today, it was probably not exactly that. But
we're trying to get people to exercise.
It was every man's dream planet. And Kirk represents the everyman. I didn't find William Shatner particularly handsome, but he's the handsome everyman, probably imbibed if he was written about here on Earth. The reason it was brilliant is because if we took ourselves into a different way of thinking, we can do that in this situation through the lens of big alcohol. It really works for them. The person has to want it. AA works for big alcohol because it's a disease. Sober October, dry January, all works for big alcohol too, because the person will convince themselves they don't have a problem. I could quit for 30 days. I don't have a problem. And they go back to and buying the stuff. Big alcohol loves those dry months. There's this unfortunate situation they've gotten the drinker in. Even your friend is an ideal candidate. They have to want it. You might sleep better if you say, I'm going to say this once. She'll remember 5 years later when she quits or dies. You're drinking too much. I see a change. I'm not
so intelligent, so kind, amazing.
How it's costing you.
Watch her and see how I used to be that way too, in that circle. The biggest thing is how close she is to me. I said, look, there's 7 types of cancer, brain volume, just all of the things.
A friend, but it's worth it.
Part of the reason I didn't quit drinking for so long, I knew I was going to lose lifelong friendships and relationships I value, because I no longer wanted to spend time that way in conversations, fun when drinking. But when you're not, Scarlett and I have, over the last couple years, that we've maintained this really beautiful connection with one another because we're looking for something deeper. It's painful to let go of people. You have to, for your trajectory in life.
It doesn't have to be painful. When you're out with nature, this friendship is a representation of love, but it's not love.
If I'm not loving her.
I label these relationships as sources of love. If he can be for you, you're for you, then who could be against you? Scarlett's for you. I'm for you. That's love.
And when you're speaking about Star Trek, Tom Holland said something, because he's spoken about his sobriety. He made a joke about if an alien came and somebody offered him a drink, the alien's, what's it going to do? It's going to make you feel intelligent and funny for a half an hour or so. And then when you keep drinking it, then you're going to get annoying and you're going to get sick and it's going to impact. It broke it down and the aliens keep your weird juice. If we could look from that perspective, especially about this dear person in my heart, if you could zoom out enough to see it from that alien perspective, you'd be like, what have we all been doing?
That's why I mentioned Star Trek, because we've gotten ourselves in this situation that's so fucking weird that if Captain Kirk himself came down, he'd be like, okay, maybe not Captain Kirk, he's from Earth, but future Earth. I think they dealt with a lot of this. He'd look at that and go, that's not a problem. He should stop drinking the poison. If he wouldn't stop, it's their problem. It is that simple. My page, my group, it's simple now after 50 years of drinking, 36 years, but it felt like 150. Now I'm like, okay, you're stupid and you're stupid. So much evidence, so many drunks, so many families destroyed. Wake up.
That is so true, because I think that because alcohol, like I've used the word endemic a lot, or systemic, whatever you want to use, but because it's so entrenched, consuming a lot of alcohol is willing to judge someone smoking. It's like, hold on a second. Or like somebody that's used to be a lot in the fitness, like with competing and stuff. And I had a lot of bodybuilder friends. Another friend said, those idiots that do steroids. I'm like, hold on a second. I know you do cocaine and I drink all the time. This person's doing steroids, but they don't do any other drugs. So you can't judge their consumption of that thing. Or somebody that drinks alcohol judging a smoker, or someone that's vaping and saying, how could they? Hold on.
Brandy, we're talking about if we're wrong. Let's say we get the moment of truth where we're listening to a talk and someone is able to point out one of your values and you realize you're wrong. Then one needs to say, wait a minute, if I was wrong about that, maybe I'm wrong about other things. And that's what's happening to you as you wake up about alcohol. COVID did it for me, even though this whole alcohol thing was like this problem. But if we shelve that for a minute, because I saw a governmental movement that wasn't necessarily good for population.
I had to close my studio, but the liquor store was open.
When we saw children home from school, the liquor store was open. Walmart was open. That was brilliant because people finally saw the raw truth. The pandemic might have backfired, but I don't think there's a big they in white lab coats humanity was revealed. Whatever you were was revealed during COVID. So I've always been a rebellion. Remember, it's 6:59, Mom. We don't have to leave for another 60 seconds. When I found out I was wrong about one thing, and I had been reading Quit Lit and questioning AA since 2011, it all came together for me. And one of the things was Andy Ramage. He's a sober guy. All these guests on Janet's show, they would each have another philosophy, another take on sobriety, another system. And this one guy said, wait a minute, this is stupid. Why would I consider myself a non-drinker? Why can't I be at the top of the mountain on day one, planting the flag in victory? And I went,
I am. You can be.
Yeah.
That's for all of us. I could have had a drink an hour ago. I don't care about the effects. If I drank an hour ago and now I make a decision to never drink again, I'm a non-drinker. You can make that decision. And that's where the spiritual awakening come in. Because guess what? The truth loves company and lies love company. Angels will meet you and give you that level of earth to walk on. Like in Indiana Jones, where he takes a step and the bridge is there.
Yeah.
The angels will do that. We've all had moments where we're like, I don't know what that was, but I had some angel on my side.
This is where, going back to Scarlett and I, not knowing this was our journey together. If you would have said a year ago, we wouldn't have known. But the first time we met, I was at the studio and I cried. I have just found somebody in my life that I thought the collective was going to work and was all in. You don't need to know the path. The path can be anything in your life. We didn't know we were going to have this conversation.
The work isn't walking the path. The work is setting a future clear in your mind in order for the path to be there so that the universe can help you. In my case, I call him God. He knows what I want. I have to stand by what I want. He knows what I want. Like, he's pretty smart. But I have to have the courage and fortitude of character to say, this is exactly what I want. And I burn the boats. I'm not going to be able to, I'm always going to turn back whenever it gets bad. That's human nature. Burning the boats with you is telling this friend the truth, and the opportunity will come. You don't have to force it. I wanted to pray with my evil boss because her child has got cancer for the second time and he's only 23, and my heart went out to her, even though she's totally evil, unsaved, unmedicated alcoholic. I wanted to pray, and I was called to do it. I was like, you're kidding. That's not me. I'm the funny one, not the Christian at work. I'm proud to be a Christian, but I am not that one that will look at you and say, can we pray? I was called to pray with this bordering on evil woman. I accepted my task. I thought in the next few days, I'm going to get an opportunity. I'd forgotten about it. Probably 10 days later, maybe 2 weeks, I was alone in her office. The mood was right. I don't know if Holy Spirit was there. I don't know if there was an angel there. I don't know what. And the words just came out of my mouth, said, hey, for Matt's, can we pray? I grabbed her hands and prayed. So she was complicit to the prayer, put it into God's hands, that force for us. We don't have to do this alone. There's a force for the truth that's going to help me because I'm not a scientist and I want to be part of the movement that removes alcohol from the earth.
Even having this conversation, I've had aha moments, being the one that helps, and not like you hold back from the energy and the light and the love you want to bring, because how dare I think I might be the one
Imposter syndrome.
To save our family from things, or friend groups, being in that position with my brother struggled with mental health issues and addiction.
You're just
being the bridge.
The oracle holding on to that energy. It is passing through you.
Fighting that is my point. How dare I believe I have the words? I don't name God as a he or she. There's this connection to the universe, something bigger. And I'm not saying it's me, but admitting there might be a way for me to be a conduit to speaking loving truths that might be another year away.
It's not egotistical or selfish because I accidentally said government. I meant to say society. Society is a ego pusher and a drink pusher. So we're sitting there. It's imbued into our lives that we're not to blame if we are thinking small, because that's just the way that we are programmed by everything around us. And knowing that is enough, as Eckhart Tolle says, to have space around it. Just knowing that I'm seeing things small, I'm probably going to take credit for something I said or did. This self-forgiveness has to go to clarity often until it becomes consistent. Those morning meditations, moments in breath work. I do breath work as well. Mine's very unestablished. Mine is just, I just remembered that there's this thing called breath work and I do on my Peloton. We get clarity after a really good session. The endorphins released when we have a really hard workout. It's proven that you are in a different space because of those hormones released. I also think we're scared of it. We can feel too clear and then don't match anybody else. It's a lonely.
Yeah, so look at you building that community. Scarlett and I have spoke at length about this, that the feeling of alone that comes after making that decision, that choice to abstain, that my fear from stopping or keeping it that long to say anything is that feeling of being alone. That's bold and courageous to choose that. The reason we want to create this program to provide community tools, coaching, care, love, and people to look across and go, this is who I'm meant to be around right now. Not feeling, oh, there's this vacuous space because I've had to sever ties with people I've been friends with for 40 years.
It's inevitable in life with or without alcohol that people are in our lives for a short time. I have a very small circle. I'm socially lazy. I'll make you laugh and I'm out the door. It's hard to get a word in with me. I'd rather do all the talking. I got to listen more. And so I find sometimes being with other people's work because I got to listen to them and tell me to talk less. I'm like, talk about say something more interesting than my own brain. I'd rather keep my circle small to flourish within ourselves.
With nobody if we want.
I'm not angry. Like I used to be not angry at other people if they want in on the conversation. Say something interesting and engaging.
When you're not drinking, I know Scarlett has spoken about deep conversations with yogis a couple drinks in. I didn't really have that group. I haven't been part of the big yoga community, more fitness community. The value doesn't go up as time goes on with more drinks, in my experience. It's me not wanting to be part of those conversations, even if they start philosophical or about politics. They generally start to decline after a certain amount of drinks or in every other person around you that you're just, I don't want to be in those conversations anymore.
I used to feel inner panic about this ending. I get a high from healthy conversation, healthy meaning that I allow other people to talk as well. But it's
like to achieve your goal. You're just going to try to take up 87% of the
I got shit from the boss yelling on the phone while my coworkers watched. How did this happen? Later, I couldn't get a word in edgewise. I've got this reputation.
You could pin it on you even when it wasn't your fault.
All she did was yell, guess what? I don't care. They think they're unique. Saying that to me, I'm like, okay, are you done? Let me get back to work. Can you imagine when I was drinking, people get more obnoxious?
Wild.
We could have done a marathon. This is already a marathon conversation.
Definitely.
We haven't peeled off as many layers of your self-doubt as with Brandy. I got my own self-doubt expressed through my drinking.
I also feel I've started to open to release the lid a little bit, that if you're not going to like me, and you talk about talking too much, I'm working on that too. Let it be your truth. Why not want to share that? Because what if somebody that's listening here has a similar situation that this is going to bring them some form of like peace and go, oh, you know what? Like just admit the struggles, speak openly about the pain with friendships or relationships unraveling, speak with authenticity, love and care. How do we know what impact our voice could bring?
Absolutely. I think this self-doubt, imposter syndrome, which I have with my podcast and coaching business, it's what do I know? High achievers even have it. How do they have that? They ran a marathon, their lead singer in a award-winning band, the things that love theater, music, all that. Those are the people that seem like the big gap between me and them, the people who can compose music, sing. I've always wanted to be a great singer. My breath is getting better. My singing is better. I've been singing my whole life. I'm okay. That gap, I think it's there for everybody, between where you are and what you admire. What's funny, the wisdom out of the mouth of babes. I made myself an artist for a couple of years. That's my piece behind me. I wasn't very good. Everything I drew was cartoonish. I never got the shading down to make it lifelike. I knew where I had to go. I saw the path and rejected it. I started drinking again. The art was gone. Now it's coming back slower. So that's my bio about my visual artistry. I did it for about 2 years where I made a little hobbyist money painting. I was at an art show, a street festival, and there was this artist beside me that was phenomenal, a young woman from Poland, brilliant. Her little birds, they look like the photograph, right? And colorful and just beautiful. So anyway, as I do, I chit chat with people of the same interest, asked her questions, and I really liked her. We're still friends. This was 7 or 8 years ago. My 19-year-old was 12 or 13, and I'll help her that day. Driving home, I said, I'm nowhere compared to that girl next to me. And I was putting myself down. And he said, Mom, you can admire where you want to go, but you have to appreciate where you are. He's 12. I go, oh,
Buddha.
little philosophist, but he's right. It's not patting ourselves on the back. It's that reverence of our human spirit that has persevered, and everything we have allowed to happen, being a good steward of the body and our time on earth. It's a stewardship. That's use a Christian term, but lovely.
It's an Indigenous term here in Canada too. If you think about the Indigenous, we are stewards of the land, and we are here to protect and care for, and we have responsibilities with it, but we
Absolutely,
benefit.
you're right. They found it strange. I don't know if you've been to the Royal Alberta Museum in Edmonton, and I went to step over the native homeless person, possibly native, maybe white, maybe black. When you step over the homeless person, then read about how wronged the earth was, not just the native people and the bison, the cruelty to the bison. I don't know exactly the story. So much happened in the conquering of this land. What I was going to say about land ownership was a misunderstanding. When white man came in and said to the natives, we will live here too, the natives said, okay.
Yeah.
And the white misinterpreted it as, oh, they're giving us their land.
That's why most of Canada is unceded territory. They went back on all of their treaties.
It's honestly documented in the history section, Canadian history, with the Aboriginal relationship. I was floored at the honesty of what Ottawa did. It was all there in black and white.
Canada was the Hudson Bay Company before we were a country, because it was a monetized thing. I did this course called Indigenous Canada. It's out of the University of Alberta, actually. I did it online because on Truth and Reconciliation Day, my heart was breaking. Colonization and alcohol have a very strong relationship.
That's how you kept them down 300 years in their society only. They are super high when they have one beer. Comparatively.
Their children getting ripped out of their arms, and residential schools, and their
so the
children
pain,
dying. And
how
then
you
people judge someone that can't manage their drink. Yeah.
Oh, the judgment, pointing to the person, not the poison. The topics are extreme, but when we bring it back down to self, everything comes back to what can I do? And I think what we can do is in our daily lives. I love Jordan Peterson for the fact that he talks about the truth, personal truth in your daily lives. Just try to live in personal truth. Try not to lie today. If you want rights, try some responsibilities. He's been a big leader in personal responsibility. And you have to stand by the authentic self. First thing in the morning when you wake up, your true self. When it comes to alcohol, if first thing in the morning you made your proclamations, that's it. I'm not drinking again. Then as the day goes on, stress, cortisol, sugar, bad food, then we were weakened, and the propaganda and all that. And then we took the drink in the evening. But in the morning, your true self, even with a bad night's sleep, if we recognize it, that's what you've done, Brandy. You recognize the truth. As you said, you have deep conversations with maybe people around that mentor you. You're a mentor to others. That's all about this coveting of the truth. That's what we're doing. We're coveting the truth. If I find out I'm wrong, I hope I can say I was wrong.
You mentioned people have to want to quit, but many have in a conflict inside themselves, but they haven't got to that stage of saying I want to quit. But with like voices like yourself and Brandy or us speaking out, people have that opportunity to see a different way, a possibility of getting to that moment where they say, I want to quit. Many people have that feeling inside of them. They're still going with the stream.
Not enough yet, because if you want to exercise, it's easier not to because it's painful. When I jump on my bike for a hard ride at the 12-minute mark, I'm like, why did I pick this one? And I didn't think I could get through it, but I got a really good instructor and he got me through it. It's the same with losing weight and exercise.
Isn't it crazy that it has to be pushed, because it's a beautiful way to feel good? I can't fill a class and it's $16 or $60 for PT, like pulling teeth, because people are on the way to the liquor store.
The physics involved to get to the place where it's just organic, pushing ourselves through circuit training in a group. The physics involved, because there has to be certain things in place, like working out with others is going to make you want to go there because of the social. You've got to be in a certain amount of fitness to start that class. If they're not enrolling, they're missing steps. I come from a fitness background and have my ISSA. I was a dancer as I age and still want to maintain a certain level of fitness. Void of goals is walking. Walking is one of those perfect exercises because it's easy, simple. You can meditate, think, work out problems, still work. It doesn't take that push. It is our graduation point between where we are in a sedentary society to when we're taking a class with you, Brandy, is walking. And this is a prescription to start stopping drinking every time you want that drink, maybe during the witching hour between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. That's your walking time. Walking, strolling, briskly walking, all of that is great. Get a dog if you need to.
Kyle, my last guest, would get home from work in that first, because he had the first 7 months. He said, and then this after that, it became 7 months and 1 day and a new transition. But he said every single day he got home from work, got changed, and walked for sometimes 5 miles, or every single day just to get out. He said it wasn't in a gym, just going for a walk. That was a huge part of helping him stay sober.
It brings people together too, because you can walk together easily. It's something, the kinesiology of what we're talking about could be as simple as walking. I think it's brilliant. I'm committed to walk every day. I saw someone who dropped 50 pounds. She was doing resistance training 3 times a week, cardio, counting macros. I don't even know how to do that. She was doing that walk 7 days a week. That's a foundation, whether we're on the journey to lose weight, whether we're trying to quit drinking. I think it's available to everybody. Even if you don't have good shoes, you can walk a shorter distance until you get good shoes. In poor places, they don't even have good shoes. I walk almost every day with the dog, even if I don't have a dog, because they've already walked the dog and I want to be alone and I don't want a little bit of the pulling. I'm going to walk every single day. It's the foundation. I think it's important to find a baseline. And the stretching and the push-ups isn't doing it. Push-ups started hurting my shoulders. I was doing that certain amount of push-ups every day and my shoulder was going, no, not anymore.
Mobility.
And mobility is so
and
important.
tightening your chest when you're doing a lot of push-ups, it's all pec major and pec minor start to tighten up in your anterior delt. So opening the front hand spine, and if you're doing too many push-ups, it's going to affect your respiratory because it's pulling the rib cage down. It's got all hugging in on your intercostals as opposed to opening up.
Even if I was doing balanced work in the dorsal chain as well as the front, it would have been better. But in the push-up challenge and taking it all year with 2 other people in WhatsApp group, we did Tabata together for a while. Now it doesn't work with our schedules. I thought, this isn't working. Can't do this many push-ups, but I can't do nothing.
If you're only doing push-ups, not using your posterior chain or doing pull downs or chin ups, that's necessary for most of us sitting at computers or driving or typing. You need your posterior chain worked harder.
Riding my Peloton, I've got a wonderful elastic routine that I do that's both mobility and flexibility. Doing my stretching, that I have this sequence that I did in a beautiful dance class that I did when I was a working dancer. We did the same bar. It was 45 minutes with a gentleman who is ballet trained. He's ballet foundational at the in the national space, doing his, and then the walking, bringing it all together. This is something that I can really keep myself healthy for the rest of my life. I think it's important that we find a routine that we love. I've got the meditation. The moment I get up, without fail, 7 days a week, I do my 15-minute meditation. I never miss now after 10 years. Do you have a routine in the morning, or do you change it up? How do you do your mornings?
I'm quite spontaneous with my partner. Sometimes I'll be doing my asana, my breath work in the morning. Sometimes I'll be doing it in the evening. I just want to get it done at some point. But I know if I have it in the morning, it makes a big difference. I'm walking 2 or 3 hours, especially this winter. We say, let's go to the fish restaurant and have something to eat. We walk 10 kilometers to get there.
And you can eat as much as you want.
We get the train back. I don't have a routine, but I like to walk every day.
Yeah, routine is a question of preference, but I find I have to apply discipline. When I was a dancer, we had to do the center bar when we had a show that night, because otherwise the technique's not going to be there. I was thinking about that today because I was reading about alcohol in my textbooks before this podcast. And I thought this is the same sharpness that I needed when I was a performer. Because you could not do a show in the evening, and you know this from your performing from bodybuilding, unless I have some kind of technique work during the day. Because if any about the evening is sloppy, then their tickets were not worth it. My performance had to be extra, worth the price of the ticket. If anyone can do it, they'd be sitting in the audience going, oh my God, I could do that.
It's funny actually, because I've had the times when I have been super disciplined. I would get up at 4 a.m, do a 4-hour practice. And I did that for about 2 years. I think I needed more discipline.
It's funny because I had times where I looked like a bodybuilder. When I had my kids, something happened to my hormones that I had I had vascularity. I had the 6-pack, 8-pack, whatever. I'm like, what's happening to my body? But I love it. I was working out. It was the best shape I'd ever been in. And then you get that high when you're at your performance weight. When you work out, you look great. A feedback loop starts where you get
and everybody's taught. That's dangerous too, though, right?
Of course, if you get injured, you're fucked. I got my ITF black belt when I was 49. The road was fraught with risk. I had to give up a bit of fitness and yet be stronger than ever before because of the black belt sparring. And I joined the competitive teams. I was sparring young men. And in some ways getting out of shape because there was so much studying, because ITF, you have to write a 4-hour written exam with Korean. It was dangerous. It was fraught with so many things. The yield, though, it made me mentally stronger. They say that about martial arts, the physical, but the yield is you're mentally stronger. Your resilience goes up. I don't really have that workout high anymore. I work out, it's hard. I feel better, but I don't have that same drug.
I think we still have that from the breath.
Yeah, every morning, that's my ritual.
8 deep breaths, and I repeat it. I don't know if it's correct.
There's so many ways. I think everything's correct if you're journeying inwards.
And
I have to go. Jasmine's waiting for me.
I'm sorry I kept going on.
No, we could have blocked out an 8-hour block and just been like, let's.
You're definitely addictive, Suzanna.
Well, there you go. I'm like alcoholic person.
I always joke, my name is Brandy, the non-alcoholic version.
You are the non-alcoholic version of Brandy now.
I love you guys. It was
a great experience. Thank you both for sharing this space. And
love to rendezvous again sometime in the not too distant future.
And send it to me and I'll put it up on the group. Sober and free. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Oh,
that was great. Peace, sister.
Ciao.
Love you.
Love you too.